Hey, Brian, good morning to you.
Hey Aaron, how you doing?
Hey, great, great. Good to see you.
You too.
All right. Let people roll in a little bit.
Yep.
And thanks for joining today. Folks, we'll get started in just a minute. I'm gonna launch a quick poll and we can see what brought everybody here today, and then we'll introduce ourselves and get started.
Right. Yeah, we've got some folks trickling in, and as you join, Aaron's got this poll that's populated about what brought you here today. Two simple questions, so feel free. I know we've got some people starting to respond to that. So,
Yep.
good stuff.
Give us a good idea of what you're currently using, what you're familiar with. I really am mystified as to how people find out about these webinars. So it's great. It's great to see that the topics got some interest. Obviously, we listed on our community, but that's good to see all today. Pardon. All right.
Yep. We've got some people who use ServiceNow security operations. We've got some people that use Proofpoint's Sigma information protection platform. We'll talk about both those. We've got some people that use neither. So hopefully this is a bit of new information for those who already have some of these capabilities. And for those that don't, hopefully this is a really good use of time and learning experience. But we'll, Aaron and I'll get this kicked off here in a couple minutes. We'll let everybody trickle in. I know it's a little early, particularly on the West Coast.
It looks like the responses have slowed down, so I'll just go ahead and share the poll. I was correct. More people find this content via an alternate route than necessarily by our blogs in the community. So that's awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. We do have it seems like some people familiar with security operations, but not necessarily familiar with DLPir itself. So look forward to talking about how Proofpoint and ServiceNow are working together on that. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Hey, everyone. My name is Aaron Bennett. I'm part of our corporate development team here at ServiceNow, focused on partnerships in security and other areas, and proud partner of Proofpoint for a couple of years now. ServiceNow has released a Proofpoint integration, and happy to have Brian from Proofpoint on today. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Brian Reed, I'm the Senior Director of Strategy over at Proofpoint. Been over there for about 3 years now. Been in the security space a long time. Previously at Gartner as an analyst covering DLP, among other topics like cloud security and the like, for about a half decade before that. So again, Aaron, I think we're going to walk everybody through the integration and how you hear this better together phrase a lot when companies come together and offer an integration or a way to take two platforms and bring them together and do some things. But ServiceNow is doing some really interesting things on the ServiceNow side with the DLPir capability. And Proofpoint, a lot of people are probably very familiar with Proofpoint from an email security standpoint, but that's really not what we're going to talk about as much today. We're really going to talk about some of the information protection capabilities, some of the DLP and cloud security capabilities within Proofpoint, and how we bring that information over into ServiceNow and work with ServiceNow to help optimize DLP incident response specifically.
Yep.
So
yeah, that makes it dovetails from that email use case everyone's familiar with. Just like with ServiceNow, most people are familiar with our IT service management and not so familiar with our other offerings. So I think we'll get into the weeds a little bit and see how Proofpoint is protecting across dimensions of data when it comes to data loss. Now at ServiceNow, how we've got this new capability where we can help you manage those detections and kind of provide the workflow overlay to that.
Yeah, this is this is probably a bit of a Captain Obvious moment for a lot of people looking at this. Obviously, protecting sensitive data is a huge challenge. The explosion of data out there is well recorded, well documented. I think everybody understands that. What's certainly changed in light of the way that we change how we work, this notion that we work from anywhere, and it seems like our data is seemingly everywhere. Users have access to a lot of different information, whether it's across different channels, whether it's email, cloud applications, endpoints, mobile devices. as well as different applications and tools that you use. A lot of us use these world-class productivity platforms out there like Office 365 and Google Workspace and ServiceNow to help do IT service management, but also other things like your governance, risk, and compliance platform might be part of ServiceNow as well. And you might have a number of different constituents and parties involved there. And there's certainly a wealth of sensitive data when we're talking about something like a GRC platform. The other thing that's no shock to anybody, and this comes straight from Proofpoint's 2022 State of the Fish report. We since released our 2023 version here recently, but the numbers are basically the same. A little under half of users leaving their jobs admit to taking data with them when they depart. So we have this huge problem that we call the leavers use case, where people are leaving the organization and they're taking things with them because they have this sense of ownership, the sense of ownership mentality. Hey, I created this information, even though I worked at Acme Corp. I own this. This is intellectual property I created. I might want to use it as proof that I'm capable in my next role. But all of these things combined together really make information protection a top priority for security leaders and CISOs globally. So, Aaron, anything you want to add on top of this?
I think it's just you're the experts in this area. Obviously, we're focused on process and protecting data within the platform. And that's one of those things where once it leaves those, like sort of digital warehouses in the company or applications, that's when, you can lose track of what information's out there. We can obviously, control things with, roles and permissions within ServiceNow. But what about what happens when that information starts to get copied and sent out by email notification, that sort of thing? That's when we have to create a layer of protection around that.
Well, and you mentioned a key word in all of that, which is process, and really documenting the process is really at the heart of how the integration works together. You can throw tools at the problem all day long, and there's a lot of great tools, particularly that Proofpoint offers, that other providers in the space offer. I've covered DLP for a long time, for a number of years. I was the lead analyst and author of the last two Gartner Enterprise DLP Magic Quadrants. And I hate the acronyms of data at rest, data in use, data in motion. I think it's a terrible way to describe the problem, but it's a very simplistic way for us to understand that we've got data in different repositories. We've got data that's exchanged and moves around. And there's all these different integration points where we have visibility into the level of security we have, the level of access and usage of data. We have things like identity and access management, identity governance systems. We have endpoint detection and response capabilities to get visibility to things like file moves, copy, create, delete, manipulation, sorts of events that happen at endpoint and potentially mobile devices, even through app access. We have things like SIM and security orchestration and automation capabilities. And then we have classic, the network in motion, data in motion elements, which is really, following encrypted information. The other problem we have, the cybersecurity industry is hugely fragmented. Richard Steinen, who's another former Gartner analyst, actually publishes every year the Security Yearbook. And we're at well over 3,100 cybersecurity companies in this space. We have a lot of, like I said, world-class collaboration platforms like Microsoft 365, like Google Workspace. And we almost have this fallacy that the platforms build in the security and it's good enough and they should be able to protect themselves. 3,100 plus cybersecurity vendors would probably have something to say about that, certainly Proofpoint included. But one of the issues with security and why it remains complex is this is a highly fragmented market where we've tried to solve this a lot of times in a channel-based way. Let's solve exfiltration at the endpoint. Let's solve data movement via web channels or email, or let's try to do things to improve security operations, or let's outsource our security to a managed service provider. There are so many different markets in here, and it becomes a really heavy lift to try to figure out the mappings of how all these things work together. That's why integrations like this that are both highlighted by vendors like ServiceNow and Proofpoint, and ones where you're not paying a huge fee to do these things, where it's included with the licensing of what you're already paying for, is such a huge benefit. The average organization out there is using 50 plus security tools. It's so, again, another point that these integrations become a really important thing. Yeah. And by the way, I did say 3,000 plus security firms. A little over 3,100 is what was noted in the most recent security yearbook published. So I've actually got a copy of the 2020 yearbook where it was about 2,900 vendors out there. So there are thousands of cybersecurity vendors out there. The average organization has dozens of security focused tools. This is a huge problem. So this is why folks like Aaron and I, this is why integration is so important, about getting tools talking together and ultimately making the value prop for you as practitioners, having that 1 + 1 equals something more than 2.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Tim, or I'll add to that, even if you're using a thumbnail like the 80/20 rule, Brian, that's still over 600 companies that are going to be relevant in the security market with a significant install base.
Yeah.
And even like, say, using ServiceNow as an example, we have hundreds, if not possibly thousands of integrations when you count the custom integrations that are built by customers with the platform. So the technology sprawl is real, and obviously, we probably need to focus down on, a reliable way to, create that fence around the organization where we can keep data in, at least to, role, applications and areas where we can control the roles and permissions like Office 365 and ServiceNow, and keep that data, within house at least.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and again, the use of all of these different providers and technologies, all these different disjointed tools that don't have that level of integration, like you said, Aaron, it's that lack of visibility. It makes things like investigation times longer and more efficient. And one of the other things that's been pretty well documented in the cybersecurity landscape the last couple of years has been burnout. Burnout by practitioners that are hands-on, burnout by CISOs and security leaders. You can go out and look at LinkedIn, just search CISO burnout, and you'll see active CISOs at Fortune 500 companies talking about burnout, both at the security leadership level, but also the rank and file, the practitioners, the people that are hands-on console and eyes on glass. And it's because of this disjointed and fractured mentality. So, like I said, these integrations help alleviate some of these challenges. They help improve metrics that we care about when we talk about security incident response. So things like mean time to containment, mean time to remediation, mean time to detection. It really matters when you can start shaving minutes and hours and days off of your investigation cycle because you've got a lot of good two-way integration and information sharing between two really powerful platforms like ServiceNow and Proofpoint. You can make your lives a lot easier.
Yep, and you can use that prioritization and automation, because we're asking security professionals to do more. I mean, I've seen in a security operations center where, we've got people focused on specifically things like malware and, obviously email security has been a long-standing, focal point or locus of, security events. And now we're throwing all these other things in the pot. So having a way for these security practitioners to create a workflow where, especially because DLP's user heavy, we have to interact with users who are owners or custodians of the data. It can become cumbersome. So it's important to have ways to prioritize these things automatically and, provide self-service portals for, the responses that are needed for this kind of stuff so that we can take down the, like obviously the workload that can be created by adding something like this practice to a security group.
Yeah. So Aaron, we've done a great job in the first 10, 15 minutes of doing what I would call admiring the problem. Let's actually dig in and talk about the integration and what we can do here. So, I mentioned not a big fan of data at rest, data in use, data in motion, but it's probably the easiest way to describe the enterprise DLP problem out there. So I know we've got a couple of customers of Proofpoint on here. We have a couple of platforms at Proofpoint. We recently rebranded our information protection platform, which covers data loss prevention, insider risk, and threat as our Proofpoint Sigma platform. We have a unified, what we call a unified incident manager, unified alert management console, and we'll talk about that centralized management and analytics capability on the Proofpoint side here in a minute. But we're doing things like consuming via data at rest. We're doing things like looking at files that you might have either labeled with something like Microsoft information protection labels, or used our own Proofpoint, what we call intelligent classification and protection, or PICP to scan that content. So the nice thing about our data at rest capabilities, we can go through and we can scan files that you might have already MIP labeled and give you some guidance on how to make those labels better. Again, not trying to necessarily say, hey, it's got to be Proofpoint labeled across the board. We'll work with the content that you have. If it's already MIP labeled, we can provide some guidance to say, hey, maybe you're either mislabeling this or over labeling or under labeling or the like. But really looking across our DLP capabilities, we have capabilities at the endpoint. Our endpoint agent is the same agent whether you do DLP or insider threat. So we really look at insider threat as a superset of DLP. DLP, again, is all those endpoint actions like file moves and copies and creates and executes and deletes and all that sort of file level manipulation with data, including things like on the Windows end, making changes to the registry, on the Mac side, making changes to system extensions, those sorts of things. Insider threat management goes a step further. We can do things like take screenshots of evidence. And again, if you're in a privacy sensitive place, that might be something you don't want to turn on. We can also capture additional metadata. We do some things where we can also, on the unified management side, we can do things like obfuscate usernames and file paths, so that if you're investigating somebody, you might not know that person's an executive. You might not know who that person is. You might be investigating somebody who's suspicious, and we want to preserve the integrity of that investigation by saying, hey, I see somebody staging a bunch of data. Come to find out, the investigation process, that's your CIO doing it or your CFO. You certainly would take a different view if you saw their name in the logs versus, user -82345. So it's really about preserving the integrity of these investigations. Obviously, people know us for email security. We've had email DLP as something at Proofpoint for 12+ years now. We also have capabilities around CASB, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute. CASB is a cloud access security broker, and a great way to think about this is it's a piece of cloud software that sits between your users and the cloud applications that you use. So whether those cloud applications are O365, Google Workspace, Salesforce, ServiceNow, it's a piece that sits in between there. And spoiler alert, ServiceNow uses Proofpoint internally to help protect their employees, their partners with the information that they share back and forth between the ServiceNow cloud as well. And again, a key integration here, we integrate with a lot of different providers on the identity side, folks like Okta and SailPoint and CyberArk. On the privilege side, folks like CrowdStrike and SentinelOne at the endpoint, folks like Palo Alto and Zscaler at the network, folks like Splunk for things like SIEM and security operations, but ServiceNow really for that IT service desk management and the DLP incident response piece is a really key integration point for the capabilities that Proofpoint offers. And Aaron, you want to chime in here a little bit deeper on the integration that we have?
Yeah, I would just say that, the ServiceNow integration, the DLPir workspace, I can share a screenshot of that and sort of intersperse that when you're ready,
yep.
Brian. But the workspace abstracts away. So you have analysts working in Proofpoint and resolving, taking actions, doing the more complex tasks. What we do in ServiceNow is we synchronize with those incidents that rise to the level of, requiring a response and tracking and reporting up to IT management. So this is a way to, remove the swivel chair aspect of DLP management from, the responder's life and from the oversight person who's trying to manage this and a number of other different security topics. So yes, well, there's a workspace within ServiceNow where you can actually see the information from Proofpoint. Status is updated bidirectionally. So it's really a way to create that sort of seamless workspace approach so that we're not causing people to like break context and move between different, screens and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Aaron, if you want to share that screenshot, I know I've got a couple here in a couple of slides.
Yeah.
I can hammer on those again, but I'll let you. I'll stop sharing.
Yeah,
And let
because I
you
think
pop that up.
this is where your slides will be sort of showing the overview, the view from the sort of the bird's eye view from the management layer. But really where it starts is, the detection, obviously Proofpoint's got the different dimensions of those, coverage areas with email, endpoint, DLP. We can take those events and basically by rule bring them into ServiceNow so that you can filter out things that are either less important or based on different attributes from the DLP alert. So we're bringing in all these different fields that allow you to sort of customize like what you track and respond to in your environment. So types of data, which user, et cetera. We can create specific rules to handle all that, and then that lands in the DLP workspace. So this is where someone in ServiceNow who's working security, there may be like different analysts like that sort of work as the inbound team for these and decide whether things can be escalated or if they can be closed as is. So you've got a layer of visibility on these events as they come through. And once the person sort of works the event, checks the data, checks the status, that sort of thing, they can create an additional record to have a sort of a higher level analyst work on, or security responder work on it, or they can basically do the close method, the close workflow to get this closed out. You can create playbooks around these incidents as they come in, so that some of these may go to an automated response and notify a user, or some of these may go to a queue where you have people actually looking at the more critical alerts. Mm-hmm. We also support, I think, the notifications so that users can respond, to, questionnaires on, why they have the sensitive information in this particular, storage area or on their laptop or on their phone. They can, they can see those alerts through their email notifications from ServiceNow and then respond to those directly, so that interaction is a little bit, is a little bit less cumbersome. So it's easier to get those, to get that data and to like basically cycle down, close the alert. So then we can go back to, obviously looking at, more important, security incidents and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, this is the integration here is really key. Aaron, I can actually step through what that enterprise DLP alert flow looks like between Proofpoint and ServiceNow and the steps that we take. And I've got a couple of more screenshots in here as well.
Great.
That we can jump into.
All right, you want to take the screen back?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I'll just walk through a little bit, and Aaron, feel free to jump in here at each of these phases. So DLPir is an add-on capability within the ServiceNow platform. If you have the Proofpoint Sigma information protection platform in place, you have enterprise DLP, you have access to the Proofpoint unified alert management or incident management system. And what that looks like when you experience that event is we're feeding in that DLP event, whether it's email DLP, whether it's endpoint DLP, endpoint insider threat, CASB, we're feeding some telemetry into our system. What ultimately happens is the DLP rule engine gets matched. A DLP alert violation gets fired off to the unified alert management system. We then create an incident to happen. If it's something where we need to block or quarantine or do something like pop up a justification notification at an endpoint, that remediation takes place. But at the same time that remediation takes place, we also fire over via API to ServiceNow and into the DLPir module that investigation context, so that a ticket gets opened up on the DLPir side. Once that becomes resolved, if it's something that's immediately blocked and things like that, you can automate that incident resolution confirmation. You can then feed that through the rest of the IT service management stack. But the real magic is being able to take that ServiceNow information, however it's worked. If there's additional things you need to do, as Aaron mentioned on the process side, you might need to go through and say, hey, I need to go sync up with my identity management platform and reset somebody's MFA or reset their credentials or change their ACLs or do some other task related to potentially access of apps or data. We can then take that information back from DLPIR into Proofpoint, and we can say, hey, this was resolved. Here's a link back to ServiceNow, giving the entire description of things that might not be security specific. They might be operation specific. They might be HR and people specific, that's recorded in ServiceNow, and say, hey, look, ServiceNow's got the full record of what transpired outside of the security operations team. The security operations team doesn't necessarily want to get involved in HR kinds of things, or legal, or privacy, or some of these other areas. It's often best recorded over in that IT service management system of record, which is standardized on ServiceNow. So it's really about putting the right things in the right platforms and the right places to make sure that you're fully working through
Here,
an incident.
Go back
ahead, Aaron.
Slide real quick. Yeah, there was a question. So a good opportunity to, kind of clarify, which, modules in ServiceNow we're talking about when we're talking about this integration between Proofpoint and ServiceNow. So Proofpoint is still the system of, obviously detection and action when it comes to resolving the DLP alerts. And ServiceNow is going to be your work management layer for those DLP alerts, so that we can get that information similar to how we get events from, like a SIM platform, or vulnerabilities from a vulnerability scanning tool. Bring those into ServiceNow for, basically like, initial investigation, putting those through like a playbook or a workflow on the ServiceNow side for notifications, SLAs, and the other sort of things that ServiceNow is really good at, a workflow piece. And then obviously synchronizing that information back with Proofpoint, so that, those working in the Proofpoint side, doing the security, configuration investigations can, understand where, there's still an open event versus, like a closed event. And like we have like parity of information on both sides. The DLP module is an add-on to our security operations suite. So if you own, we'll answer this one too. If you own ITSM, or if you own security incident response, you would still need to acquire the DLPIR module in order to get this integration stood up and running, because it's a specific module, it's sort of purpose built to, get this type of alert and provide this type of workflow. So it's sort of beyond the traditional, like, malware detection, or, spam or phishing detection. And it goes into this sort of specific data protection use case. And that's where this is. So it's not ITSM, it's not, security incident response, or SOAR. It's really this DLPIR product that we've built specifically for this type of workflow.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers those questions.
Yeah, I went ahead and typed in there and paraphrased Aaron as you were talking there. But what does DLPIR in action look like? I know, Aaron, you shared the other slide here a minute ago of what that looks like. These might be a little dated, but this is the workplace experience. So being able to drill into open incidents by different severities, looking at top offenders, and this pulls back from Proofpoint, that people information, the endpoint information, the device information of where those DLP policy violations took place. We can look at a list of those different DLP IR tickets that get opened. We can see the policy name that matched the current state, when they were opened, critical, high, medium, low, being able to really drill in and who that's assigned to, and working through. And I know Rakesh has his hand raised, and we'll get to that. But, and again, the detail here of really being able to see, as far as working through the entire process, what do you need to do to remediate and close out those incidents? You might need to create additional. This might be an incident where it spawns other things that need to happen. I very quickly glossed over the example of privacy or legal issues or HR issues. Those might need to be things where on the ServiceNow side, you would want to create dependent or child instances or incidents related to that. That's not something you'd necessarily want to put in Proofpoint. So one of the real value points I see in ServiceNow DLPIR is taking a bit more of a DLP governance view, where there are things that your security operations folks on, your DLP administrator will definitely want to be very hands down involved in the information Proofpoint's gathering, whether it's from email, whether it's from endpoint, whether it's from cloud. But there's a lot of other things. DLP is kind of a unique animal in the sense that it touches things outside of security, HR, legal, privacy, business unit, kinds of topic areas, et cetera. And that's really the power of DLPir, is really being able to sort of chain those incidents together and being able to see that from a bigger picture standpoint.
Yep. Totally agree. That's the key takeaway, Brian, I think, is that we can enable those additional processes, that, are required to close and, create resolution on the DLP side at Proofpoint, in the platform, link those workflows together in one platform and, create that connectivity. I think that's really where you get your, you gain that efficiency over manual process.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Go ahead.
I think it's good stopping point to see. I know it's bottom of the hour, so some folks may have to drop or leave us. So I wanted to basically find out if anyone's interested in getting a deeper dive into the DLPir integration, and then we can go through our last little bit of content. So I'm going to launch a quick poll, and then Brian, you can go through the slides as planned. So here you go, everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So we've got the poll. We'll leave this up here for a minute to let everybody respond there. While you're responding, in case you do need to run at the bottom of the hour, I did want to skip up here. So there are some things. Proofpoint offers a complimentary DLP and insider risk workshop. You can reach out to Proofpoint. You can reach out to me directly, BReed, BREED at proofpoint.com. Happy to route you internally to the right folks. But within the ServiceNow platform, there's a landing page for DLPir to learn more about that on the docs site at ServiceNow. And then the ServiceNow store actually has the DLP integration module for Proofpoint published out there. So you can search just simply at store.servicenow.com, search on Proofpoint. It should pop up there right in the store, front and center for you.
Yep. And, just other sort of news, if you're a Proofpoint customer and planning on attending the, company event in September, ServiceNow is planning to be there. We're planning to bring a demo station so that we can, look at this in depth. So if there's any interest in learning more and you're planning to be in the event anyways, please stop by and see us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll also be, I know we've got the upcoming Black Hat conference in Las Vegas in August. Right. Proofpoint will be there as well. We'll have our engineering team will be in the booth area. Happy to talk about any of our integrations, including ServiceNow there as well. So, be able to show that unified alert management console of bringing all those things together. So if you are a ServiceNow customer and a Proofpoint customer, yeah, we'll both
be there, right, Brian?
We will. You
can come see us in person if you'd like. We'd love it.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so we've got some good responses back on the poll here. Aaron, I've got a couple of other things that I wanted to share. I'll go ahead and backtrack really quickly with a couple more slides. But really, I talked about that Sigma information protection platform. And again, this is really looking across, Windows, Mac endpoints, looking at all that user activity, file activity. It's in a single unified alert management interface. It's a great way to conduct investigations in that singular platform. But I wanted to talk for a moment really quickly about the additional layer of security that's within ServiceNow. So I mentioned and kind of teased this a little bit, that ServiceNow via API utilizes our CASB capabilities as well. So being able to, via that API connection, we're actually protecting ServiceNow and looking at things like file movements and suspicious cloud user activity. We're also doing things with what we call AAC, or adaptive access controls. And we're looking at user and device risks. So there's a really nice piece of this where it's not just a straight 1 or 0 allow or block. We also offer the ability that, let's say you're connecting to ServiceNow from a risky area, we could potentially redirect that to an isolated browser session where maybe you're not allowed to upload or download files within ServiceNow, but you can view IT systems management tickets and things like that. So we could do a lot of things with the granularity of control and visibility into the ServiceNow platform to really help make that platform security. I mentioned a couple of times things like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, Salesforce, ServiceNow. These are these anchor cloud platforms that are really helping enable IT productivity within all of our environments, and it's really on us to help support the platform and make it more secure. That's really the mission that we have at Proofpoint. Is we don't think that security should fall solely at the feet of these world-class platform providers, like Microsoft and Google and ServiceNow. We're here to help. We're here to provide that additional layer of security and context visibility to help make those platforms as secure as they can possibly be, and be that second set of eyes and really have these platforms back.
Yep. And we as ServiceNow fully expect that customers will want a single system to, obviously there's an email relays within the platform. We generate a lot of email traffic because we're sending out, notifications and getting responses to, tasks within incidents and that sort of thing. So we do fully expect that customers are going to aggregate that data in one system of security to scan and, secure all those messages and determine, the sensitivity and that sort of thing. So yeah, fully expect that customers will want to hook into that email relay with Proofpoint now.
Perfect. Yeah. And again, I know we touched on this here briefly a few minutes ago, but if you are interested in those next steps, I wanted to leave this slide up here for everybody so that they could capture these URLs on the ServiceNow side, where to go to find additional documentation and supporting resources to help get started with DLPir.
All right, we had a couple of questions, so please keep them coming. We'll be here and available as long as you'd like to go with the content. We can dive back in and dig deeper on any specific topics. I'll run through some of the ones that were asked so that they're in the recording. So a couple about like which module this is in ServiceNow, a couple different bites of that apple. So it's not, the ITSM, it's not part of the ITSM module, sort of the base, where everyone usually starts with the platform. It is part of our SecOps suite, but it's not part of our security incident response. Like it's not an additional capability in there. It's actually a separate module with its own data model and, sort of architecture. So it is part of SecOps, but it is an additional module where you can actually, just be specifically, a DLP user if that's what you want to do. And then another question I think that we need to get to. So on the ServiceNow side, is this available now from Utah or the next one? So the way we release, even if, this is built within, a specific family release like Tokyo, I think it was released for, we make it backwards compatible to prior releases. So when it's released, it'll be compatible for everything that's supported currently in ServiceNow. So I think it was like the last two. If you're on San Diego or Tokyo. So it will continue to be, certified going ahead as a ServiceNow integration. So you should be able to expect that it's available. It's not a limited GA product. It's like fully released in GA. So it should be available for whatever version of the platform you're using. All right. So we took note of those folks who did want a follow-up, and we're going to be glad to follow up with you. I think, Brian, you got an answer typed in there. So
no, I was just going to, you had asked, is this available now from the Utah family or the next one? And you had just answered
yeah, great.
Potential for backward compatibility to,
want to make sure we hit all the open questions. I don't see anything in the chat. And so somebody else probably needs to get going. So
yep.
Brian, it's been great talking about this topic with you today. It's been a ton of fun. You're super expert on the DLP side of things, and I look forward to seeing you at Black Hat. Hopefully people who joined us today will come see us in person, whether at Black Hat or the Proofpoint event. Brian, anything you want to add?
Yeah, the Proofpoint event that Aaron's mentioned is our Protect 2023 conference that will be in New York City the week after Labor Day. So if you're interested in attending that and you're a Proofpoint customer, please reach out to your account manager and they can get you additional information on that. I did not have a link to the Proofpoint Protect conference handy, but you should be able to find it at the root of our website. at www.proofpoint.com.
Perfect. And then obviously, just final parting thought. We're actively continuing to work on the integration. PM is adding capabilities. We should see those within this quarter, maybe August, maybe September. So continue to look for those. We encourage you, like as part of the follow-up, try the application, get a demo, and we look forward to, further interaction. Thanks again, Brian, for presenting today.
Yeah, you got it, Aaron. Thanks again for having us.
Great. All right. We're going to end, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Thanks.